Have you ever felt like something unseen is holding you back, as if your own thoughts are quietly tying you down with invisible ropes you cannot quite name? You wake up each morning with good intentions. You tell yourself, today will be different. Today I'll finally stop doing that one thing I regret again and again. Yet almost without noticing, you fall into the same loop. The habit sneaks in softly, and before you even realize what's happening, you've already given in once more. That is the quiet power of harmful habits. They don't shout, they whisper. They don't break you all at once. They slowly wear you down until you begin to believe this is simply who you are. But here's the truth. That's not who you are. It's only a routine your brain has learned over time. And what the mind has been taught, it can also unlearn. If this video helped you, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons so you never miss the next one. Also, drop a comment and let me know which city you're watching from. I'd love to hear from you. Let's come back to the point. So friends, the dangerous thing about bad habits is how they disguise themselves as comfort. They arrive in moments of stress, sadness, or boredom, promising a little relief. They whisper that just this once you'll feel better, and for a short moment you actually do. But soon after, the guilt arrives, the regret follows, and the emptiness returns, leaving you worse than before. This never-ending loop doesn't only waste your hours. It slowly steals your self-respect. It convinces you that you are weak when in reality you are not weak at all. You are simply human, caught in a cycle your brain has repeated so often it feels automatic. Experts say up to 95% of what we do each day is driven by habit, not by conscious decision. That means most of your actions, thoughts, and even emotions are shaped by routines running quietly in the background of your awareness. Imagine how much influence that gives habits over your life. This isn't about laziness or lack of discipline. It's about a system inside you that has been programmed again and again. But just as it was programmed, it can also be rewritten. The quiet chains of harmful habits do not have to be your cage. You don't need to break yourself to break free. What you need most is awareness. Once you clearly see the chain, it begins to lose its strength. Once you recognize that the habit is not truly you, but something separate from you, you've already taken the first real step toward freedom. Think about it carefully. If a habit can be learned, it can also be unlearned. If it can be repeated, it can also be replaced. The real issue is not that you are powerless. The issue is that you've been fighting blindfolded. That is why many people stay stuck for years. They keep telling themselves, tomorrow I'll quit. But when tomorrow arrives, the same triggers appear, the same feelings rise, and the same cycle follows. Each failed attempt, they don't just strengthen the habit, they weaken their own belief in themselves. And that loss of belief is where the deepest damage lies. It convinces you that change is impossible, even though that's not true. You are not doomed to remain under the weight of bad habits. You have much more control than you think. Your brain, at its core, is built to protect you, though it doesn't always do it in the best way. A habit is simply your brain's shortcut, a way of saving energy, a way of searching for comfort. That means your habits are not your true enemy. They are simply helpers pointed in the wrong direction. If you can learn how to guide them, you won't have to battle yourself anymore. You'll begin to work with yourself. Imagine what it feels like when your daily routines stop being your enemy and start becoming your tools. Think about the kind of person you could grow into once your own mind begins building you instead of breaking you. This is why breaking bad habits without breaking yourself is possible. Because the battle is not about destroying who you are. It's about reshaping who you are becoming. Every habit is like a vote for your future self. Every decision, every repeated action, every routine is casting a ballot for the type of life you will live tomorrow. You clearly see that the chains no longer appear unbreakable. That is why, as you listen carefully, I want you to stay with me until the very end, because the reward is simple but life-changing. By the last word, you will not only see your habits in a new light, you will see yourself in a new light. You will understand the hidden psychology that has kept you stuck, and you will also learn how to turn it into your greatest strength. Freedom does not begin with force. It begins with understanding. And once you know the truth, nothing can stop you. Many people think that if they only had more willpower, they could drop any habit instantly. They tell themselves, I just need to be tougher. I just need to push harder. But this very way of thinking is the reason so many remain stuck. Power is like a muscle. It grows tired the more you use it. And when it is drained, the habit takes control again. That's why people start strong in the morning, but give in by evening. It's not because they are weak. It's because they are leaning on a tool that was never designed to carry the full weight of change. Science shows that habits live deep in the subconscious. They run on autopilot, far below conscious choice. That's why sudden cravings feel so strong. By the time you notice the urge, your brain has already signaled the body to move. Power alone cannot hold back something that happens faster than your awareness. That's like trying to stop a speeding train with your bare hands. You might slow it for a second, the weight will crush you eventually. What truly matters is not how hard you fight, but how wisely you fight. When you depend only on willpower, you create a war within yourself. Part of you longs for freedom. The other part clings to comfort. Every inner battle leaves you more drained, more frustrated, and more convinced that you cannot change. Once you understand how habits are built, you stop fighting blindly. You move from force to strategy, and that changes everything. You don't fail because you are weak. You fail because you're trying to win with the wrong method. Imagine trying to open a locked door with the wrong key. No matter how strong you are, no matter how many times you try, the door will not open. But the moment you have the right key, it unlocks with ease. That is what happens when you stop leaning only on willpower. You finally find the right key, and suddenly what felt impossible begins to feel possible. If you truly want to escape the grip of a bad habit, you cannot only look at the surface. The surface is the action itself. The smoking, the scrolling, the overeating, the procrastination. But these are not the real enemy. They are only symptoms of something deeper. Habits are born from triggers, and triggers are tied to emotions. Each time you repeat a habit, it's because some inner feeling is being answered. Maybe it's stress, maybe it's emptiness, maybe it's loneliness. The habit itself is not the real problem. It's simply your brain's attempt to solve the problem. Think about it. Nobody lights a cigarette simply to enjoy smoke. Nobody checks their phone 100 times a day just because the screen is magical. Nobody eats junk food at midnight only for the taste. These actions are tied to hidden needs. They offer escape, distraction, or temporary comfort. That is why fighting the habit directly doesn't work. Because the habit is only a mask, not the real face. If you want true change, you must uncover what the habit is trying to protect you from. Psychology tells us awareness is the very first stage of transformation. When you notice what triggers your habit, you begin to weaken its hold. Instead of moving like a machine, you pause and ask, what am I really seeking right now? That question changes everything. The true craving is relief from stress. The answer is not the cigarette. It is learning a healthier way to release stress. If the craving is connection, the answer is not endless scrolling. It is building real relationships. When you address the root, you remove the fuel keeping the habit alive. The truth is, you cannot heal what you refuse to see. Bad habits are not only routines, they are coping strategies. Until you face the emotions feeding them, you will feel stuck in the same loop. Once you shine a light on those hidden motives, you are no longer a prisoner. You take control. And control is where freedom begins. Of the biggest traps in change is the belief that it must happen overnight. Many people think they need to wake up one morning, cut off the habit fully, and never touch it again. This sounds powerful in theory, but in reality it usually ends in disappointment. Expecting instant transformation makes every slip feel like total failure. And with each slip, the mind whispers, "See, you'll never change." That belief does more harm than the habit itself. The truth is, your brain is not built for sudden revolutions. It is built for gradual growth. Habits are created through repetition, one small step at a time, and they are broken the same way. Expecting to erase years of conditioning in a single day is like planting a seed and demanding a tree by tomorrow. Growth doesn't work that way. Real growth is steady, not sudden. Think about the routines you have today. They weren't formed in one night. They were carved into your life choice after choice. That means the path out is the same. Every small victory matters. Each time you resist, each time you delay the urge, each time you pick a better response, you weaken the chains. Over weeks and months, small wins add up. They create new patterns, new routines, and eventually a new identity. The key truth is that consistency always beats intensity. 1,000 small steps forward will carry you further than one giant leap followed by collapse. It's not about dramatic change. It's about steady, lasting change. When you stop chasing instant results, you free yourself from the heavy pressure that keeps you stuck. Instead of living in guilt for not being perfect, you begin living in pride for making progress. That small shift in perspective is what transforms the impossible into something achievable. Real power is not in how fast you change. Change does not only depend on how much you want it, but in how deeply it lasts. Many people, when they try to change, carry anger toward themselves. They punish their own mistakes. They drown in guilt, speaking to themselves in ways they would never use with someone they care about. This harshness does not end the habit. It strengthens it. Why does this happen? Because shame works like fuel. The more you shame yourself, the more pain you build inside. Pain you feel, the more your mind runs back to the very habit you are trying to leave behind, searching for comfort. It becomes a cruel cycle. You fail, you feel guilty, and that guilt drives you straight back into failure again. The real road to freedom is not built on punishment, but on kindness toward yourself. This does not mean excusing the habit or pretending it does not matter. It means treating yourself like someone worth saving, not someone worth destroying. Psychology shows that when people believe they are worthy of change, they succeed more often than those who think of themselves as broken. If you see yourself as broken, you will act broken. But if you see yourself as someone growing, you will act like someone capable of growth. Imagine speaking to yourself the way you would speak to a close friend who is struggling. You would not call them weak or hopeless. You would remind them of their strength, their ability, and their value. That is the voice you must turn inward. Because when you show respect to yourself, even in failure, you build the emotional safety that makes real change possible. Without that safety, you will always run in circles, punishing yourself into repeating the same mistakes. Breaking a habit is not about proving how tough you are. It is about proving your loyalty to yourself. You do not fight against yourself. You fight for yourself. When you move from shame to compassion, you stop digging the hole deeper and instead begin building the ladder out. That is the moment when change stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like freedom. The human mind is built to chase progress, and nothing fuels it more than small wins. Every little victory sends a message to your brain: change is possible. The size of the step does not matter. What matters is that it moves you forward. You break a habit down into the smallest possible challenge. You give yourself the chance to succeed today, not someday. And success, even in its tiniest form, builds momentum. That momentum becomes the energy that carries you past the moments of weakness. Think about how habits are created. They do not appear out of nowhere. They are formed one repetition at a time until the brain locks them in as normal behavior. The same principle works in reverse. Every time you resist, even for a short while, you are teaching your mind a new way of living. That one moment of control may feel small, but it is not small to your brain. It is proof. Proof that you are not ruled by the habit. Proof that you can choose differently. Human psychology grows stronger with proof. When your mind gathers evidence that you are capable, it begins to change the story it tells about you. The habit stops being your identity and becomes something you used to do. And the more you stack those small wins, the stronger this new identity becomes. Many people fail not because they lack strength, but because they overlook the power of small victories. They look for a big breakthrough, dramatic moment of change, and ignore the quiet triumphs that truly build freedom. But the truth is, every single small win counts. Each time you delay, resist, or redirect, you are shaping a stronger future. And when those wins start adding up, the old habit no longer feels unbreakable. It feels weaker. This is how change moves from being just an idea to becoming reality. Many fail to break their habits because they try to remove them without replacing them. The brain does not work with empty space. It is built to follow patterns. And when one pattern is removed, the brain immediately searches for another to fill the gap. This is why someone suddenly quits a habit. They often find themselves picking up another one instead. The energy has to go somewhere, and unless you guide it, the mind will guide it for you. This is why the most powerful method is not only removal but also replacement. If your habit is a way to escape stress, then create a healthier way to escape. If your habit comes from boredom, design a new routine that excites you. When the craving arrives, do not only fight it, redirect it. Your brain already craves rhythm, comfort, and reward. All you need to do is attach that craving to something that helps you instead of something that harms you. Psychology calls this reconditioning. You are teaching your brain a new answer to the same trigger. At first, it feels unnatural, but with repetition, it becomes natural. Just as your old habit once felt automatic, the new habit will also begin to feel automatic. This is how the cycle works. You cannot erase it, but you can rewrite it. Think of it like remodeling a house. You do not tear the whole structure down. You keep the frame and reshape it into something better. Your brain's wiring is the same. You are not beginning from zero. You are redirecting the energy that already lives in you. Once you learn to replace instead of just remove, you stop losing battles and start winning them. This is the shift that turns temporary effort into lasting transformation. True lasting change does not begin with what you do. It begins with who you believe you are. Every action you take reflects the identity you carry in your mind. If you see yourself as a smoker, you will always return to smoking even after months of quitting. If you see yourself as someone who procrastinates, you will always find a way to delay. This is why many attempts to break habits collapse. They focus only on actions and ignore identity. The human brain craves consistency. It wants your behavior to match your beliefs about yourself. If your actions and identity clash, identity always wins. That is why saying, "I'm trying to quit," is weaker than saying, "I don't do this anymore." The first statement ties you to the old self, the second connects you to the new one. It may feel uncomfortable at first, but each time you affirm the person you are becoming, you strengthen that identity. Over time, the habit begins to fade, not because you forced it away, but because it no longer matches who you are. Think of the difference between someone forcing themselves to exercise and someone who believes they are an athlete. The first struggles, bargains, and often gives up. The second does not argue with themselves. They simply live out their identity. That is the power of identity-based change. When you shift the way you see yourself, your habits naturally fall in line. This is not pretending. It is choosing a story that lifts you instead of one that limits you. You are not chained to the identity of your past. You are free to decide who you are today. And once you make that decision, every choice, every action, every habit becomes a reflection of that higher self you are building. Every habit is built on a trigger, something that sparks the automatic response. It could be a place, a feeling, a time of day, or even the people you are with. People do not notice these triggers because they happen so quickly. One moment you feel restless, and the next you are already reaching for the habit. Between the trigger and the action lies a powerful space, the gap where choice lives. It is small, but it is enough. If you can learn to notice it, you can change everything. The key is awareness. The moment you feel the urge rising, you have already broken the pattern. Instead of letting the habit carry you away, you pause and breathe. Pause may last only a few seconds, but in those seconds, you take back control. The craving is still there, the temptation is still strong, but you are no longer reacting blindly. You are choosing with awareness. Each time you make that choice, you train your mind to see that it does not have to obey every impulse. Psychologists call this response flexibility, the ability to pause before acting. It strengthens with practice, just like a muscle. At first, it may feel nearly impossible to stop yourself, but each time you manage even the smallest pause, you weaken the old chain. Over time, the gap grows wider. Once felt uncontrollable begins to loosen its hold. Freedom begins here. Not by forcing yourself never to feel a craving, by realizing that a craving does not control you. The trigger may come, but it does not have to decide your action. You decide. And when you start to see that truth, you begin moving from being a prisoner of habit to being the master of your choices. This shift is not only about breaking one habit. It is about transforming the way you live your entire life. Your surroundings are more powerful than most people think. Habits are not just born in your mind, they are shaped by your environment. The people you spend time with, the places you live in, even the objects around you act as silent signals to your brain. Cluttered space can spark procrastination. Certain friends can trigger old behaviors. Even something as simple as where an object is placed can trigger a habit without you even noticing. The environment is like a conductor guiding the music of your actions. This is why many struggle to change while staying in the same conditions. You may have all the knowledge, willpower, and motivation, but if the environment keeps feeding the habit, success becomes far harder. Your brain is wired to follow cues, to repeat what feels familiar. If those cues are always present, the habit keeps being rehearsed over and over again. The solution is not to wait for motivation to arrive, but to take charge of your environment. Make the habit more difficult to continue. Remove the cues that trigger it. Keep reminders around you of the person you want to grow into. Adjust your surroundings so that the old routine becomes harder and the new one feels natural and easier. Adjustments, moving objects around, taking a different daily route, or altering your routines can create a big difference because they send signals directly to your deeper mind. Psychology shows that people are influenced far more by their environment than by raw willpower. When your surroundings are designed for your growth, your thoughts follow more smoothly. Change becomes less about constant effort and more about natural alignment. You are no longer battling your old patterns in the same old settings. Instead, you are shaping spaces where your future self can succeed. And when your environment supports you instead of fighting against you, giving up bad habits stops looking like a fight and starts feeling like a natural movement toward the life you want. Change requires time, and patience is the invisible strength that divides those who reach their goals from those who quit early. Breaking a habit is not a race to the finish line, and it is not just one event. It is an ongoing journey, a chain of little choices repeated day after day, week after week, after month. The mind resists sudden shifts, but it can learn steadily, quietly, and faithfully. When you accept that real change is gradual, you take away the heavy pressure that often causes people to quit. Steadiness is stronger than motivation. Motivation rises and falls like waves in the ocean. Some days you will feel powerful, other days drained. But steadiness does not depend on emotions. It depends on repeated action, and actions build patterns. Even when you are tired, stressed, or unsure, taking even a tiny step forward keeps the flow alive. One small repeated choice carries more strength than a big burst of effort that quickly fades away. Human minds grow stronger through repetition. Each time you act differently from your habit, you are reshaping the brain. Pathways are carved slowly like cutting grooves in stone. It takes time for the groove to become deep enough so the new action feels automatic. Every repetition makes it stronger. That is why patience is not passive, it is active practice. Believing in the process and showing up for yourself every single day, no matter how small the step may be. Patience also protects you from discouragement. Falling back into the habit is part of the journey, not proof of failure. Every stumble gives a chance to learn, shift, and improve. When you treat mistakes as lessons instead of punishments, your determination grows. The old pattern loses strength because you forced it to disappear, but because your steady practice has built something stronger to replace it. Change is not instant. It becomes unavoidable when you mix patience with steady actions. Each day you practice this. Every time you choose in a new way, you are laying a base for lasting freedom. The habit that once held you becomes weaker, and the new patterns built on patience and persistence become the natural way you live. Transformation grows quietly, steadily, with deep strength. Falling back into old habits is not the real enemy. It is part of the path. Almost everyone who has tried to change a habit has slipped at some point. You may feel guilt, frustration, or defeat when this happens, but those moments do not erase your progress. In truth, they prove you are working against old patterns, leaving autopilot and trying something new. The key is not to fear those moments, but to understand them and keep moving forward with strength. Each relapse holds a lesson. It reveals where your triggers are strongest, where your planning needs adjustment, or where your awareness could improve. Instead of sinking into guilt, use it as a map. Study it calmly and clearly. What led to that moment? What can you do differently next time? When you see a slip not as failure, but as information, you turn a setback into a step forward. Psychology shows that resilience grows not by avoiding problems, but by facing them and rising again. Each time you return after a slip, you strengthen the mental patterns that support your change. You prove that one mistake does not erase your journey. This builds confidence, and confidence is the fuel that supports long-term change. Forgiving yourself is powerful. This does not mean lowering standards. It means realizing that growth takes time. You treat yourself with care instead of anger. You stop feeding the habit with shame and begin fueling it with determination. Breaking a habit is not about perfect performance. It is about forward movement. Every attempt, every effort, every return after falling back is a vote for your future self. And when you collect enough of these votes, your actions, patterns, and eventually your entire life reflect the person you are dedicated to becoming. Resilience turns mistakes into forward motion, and forward motion turns small wins into permanent freedom. Every habit is powered by some kind of reward. The mind repeats behaviors because it expects a payoff: pleasure, comfort, distraction, or relief. That is why habits feel so strong. They are not just routines. They are learned responses the brain has come to value. If you want to end a habit, you cannot ignore this. You need to work with it, not fight against it. Understanding the reward hidden inside the habit is the doorway to change. You recognize what you get from a habit, you can begin replacing it with something healthier that brings the same or even greater reward. If stress fuels the habit, find a better outlet for that stress. If boredom triggers it, find an engaging activity that brings the same satisfaction. By giving your mind a reward it actually wants, you stop the tug of war between craving and control. The desire still appears, but now it moves towards something positive. This is not a fast trick. It is a conscious method. Your mind searches for fulfillment. And when you give it in a way that builds you up, the old pattern starts to weaken. The brain's reward system begins to shift. Instead of feeling pulled by something harmful, you start to feel pulled by something useful. With time, your mind links satisfaction with progress instead of escape, strength instead of weakness. Psychology shows that people respond better to rewards than punishments. Habits form more easily and stay longer when the reward is clear and quick. The same applies to breaking habits. When you connect positive results with the new action, you strengthen the mental path. The old habit loses appeal, not because you forced it out, because it no longer gives what your brain is truly after: When you see the reward in every habit, you gain power over it. You are no longer blind or helpless. You shape your actions so they satisfy the mind while also serving your goals. The habits that once controlled you begin to serve you, and your future becomes yours to design. Think about the life you could live if the habits that once ruled your choices no longer had power. Every decision could be thoughtful. Every action could match the person you want to be. Freedom from harmful patterns is not about constant struggle. It is about building a future that feels natural, exciting, and deeply fulfilling. When your actions match your values, the weight of the past falls away without a fight. Mental rehearsal is a strong tool here. Imagine yourself without the habit. How does it feel? How does a normal day unfold? How does your mind handle stress? The clearer this image becomes, the stronger your drive grows because your brain begins to believe it can become real. This practice teaches your mind to choose new responses, to search for better paths, and to value the life you want. When you keep your focus on the person you are turning into, habits begin to shift almost on their own. Your actions mirror your new identity. The small steps, the pauses, the replacements, the patience, and the rewards all build into this bigger vision. Change stops feeling like a battle. It feels like stepping into the version of yourself you were always meant to be. Every choice confirms your new self, and with every confirmation, the old pattern fades until it no longer matters. The mind naturally follows clear, consistent stories. When your identity, actions, and choices line up, your behavior becomes automatic, not because you push it, but because it belongs to who you are. Your freedom is not found in punishment or harsh force. It comes from clarity of purpose. Every small step you take toward your vision, every little shift you make in your space, every mindful choice you make lays a foundation for lasting change. The person you are becoming is stronger than the habit you are leaving. And when you see that truth, you realize the life you dream of is not far away. It is already inside you, waiting for the steady actions that make it real. The last part of breaking a habit without breaking yourself is to call on the inner strength that has always been there. This strength does not come only from raw willpower. It comes from knowing you are capable, worthy, and already proving yourself through each small victory. Real power comes from steady action, awareness, and the daily choice to build the life you want. Every habit you overcome shows your resilience. Every pause instead of reaction, every replacement instead of blind resistance, proves your past does not control your future. You are taking back power over your mind, your body, and your life. And this power grows stronger each day you practice it. People are shaped by repeated actions. Every choice you make is a vote for the identity you are creating. With enough votes, your sense of self changes. The patterns that once looked impossible to defeat lose control. They fade away, not because you crushed them with force, but because you grew stronger inside. Clarity, patience, kindness to yourself, and persistence. These are the real keys to freedom. You do not have to destroy yourself to leave behind destructive habits. You only need to choose growth steadily, respect yourself through mistakes, and keep aligning your actions with who you want to be. When you do this, change stops being a heavy struggle and turns into a natural extension of your true self. The ability to reshape your life has always been in your hands. Ending a habit is not about force. It is about strategy, patience, and self-respect. Every single step, even the smallest one, moves you closer to a life where you are free. Your choices reflect your true self, and where your growth cannot be stopped. You are fully capable of this change, and every moment you dedicate to it brings you nearer to the freedom and strength you already deserve.